The courtroom was so silent, you could practically hear the soft buzz of the ceiling lights. Nobody breathed loudly enough to risk being noticed. The judge's gavel had only just bonged the beginning, but the anticipation had been piling up for decades. On the polished oak table across from Kody Brown sat one side of the tension, his jaw clenched, his eyes shifting nervously like a trapped animal. On the other hand, Christine with her head held high, holding a pile of papers as if they were her weapon. It wasn't necessarily about the legal papers. This wasn't about custody or property or contracts. Not on the surface, at least. This was about years of broken promises, words twisted, and love made into something alien. Christine's attorney cleared her throat, but Christine herself didn't budge. Her gaze was fixed on Kody's, frozen, unwavering, as if daring him to blink. He didn't. If there had been a death penalty for being stared at, the trial would have been over. Mrs. Brown? The judge's voice came, steady but authoritative. You may proceed. Christine didn't glance at the judge. She simply stood up slowly, as if accumulating the bulk of all memory, all tears, all nights spent lying awake. She set her palms on the table, and then, in a voice that shook just hard enough to be authentic, but not hard enough to sound weak, she started, "This isn't just about one fight, or one terrible year. This is about a lifetime of betrayal, in plain sight." The courtroom leaned in as one. Even the stenographer paused, realizing that each word was going to be significant. Kody shifted uncomfortably in his seat. Objection, overruled. The judge interrupted hastily. Proceed, Mrs. Brown. Christine's lips twisted into something not quite a smile, and not quite sadness. Something colder. She started telling about episodes nobody had ever heard before. Late-night phone calls. Kody answered in another room, the hushed schemes hatched when he thought she was asleep. The enigmatic vanishing on holidays. And then, the letters. The letters she stumbled upon accidentally, tucked away in the bottom of a drawer. Letters not to her, not even written about her, but regarding a future that did not involve her at all. Gasps were heard throughout the room. Christine dug into her folder and produced the first letter, holding it up for all to read. Her voice trembled, but her eyes didn't. You said we were creating a family, Kody, and you were creating an exit strategy. Kody slammed his hand on the table. That's a lie. The judge's gavel came down again. Mr. Brown, you will speak not until it is your time to do so. Christine didn't blink. She let the silence hang there, like a tightening noose. You made me feel like I was insane for questioning you. You made me feel like I wasn't sufficient. And now, you want to sit here and play the victim. The air in the room was stifling. It reeked with the scent of varnished wood, worn carpet, and raw truth. Christine's tone lowered almost to a whisper, but the microphone picked up every syllable. I'm not here to destroy you, Kody. I'm here to free myself. Those words cut sharper than any accusation. And the way she said them, it wasn't rage, it wasn't hatred, it was finality. For a moment, Kody didn't have a comeback. His jaw clenched, but no sound came out. The man who always had something to say, had nothing. The judge nodded for her to proceed. And Christine did, but not before shooting a look directly at Kody, the sort of look that makes you feel naked in front of the whole world. She wasn't just sharing her story. She was claiming it. By the time Christine sat down, the courtroom seemed smaller. The walls seemed closer. And Kody knew, before the judge even began to speak, that this was going to be a battle he couldn't spin, couldn't charm, couldn't win with words. Christine rested back, her breathing even. For the first time in years, she felt lighter. And then she told them something nobody anticipated. Something that made even Kody's eyes go wide. Your turn, Kody. Share your truth if you dare. The judge motioned to him to get up. Kody stood up slowly, holding on to the edge of the table, his knuckles white. He looked at Christine, then at the judge, then over at the pile of papers she had just relinquished as evidence. He knew just what was contained within them. And that's when the first true break in his voice occurred. Your Honor, there are things I need to confess. Gasps rocked the room once more. Even Christine was momentarily stunned. What was Kody going to admit? The solution would untangle not only the case, but the years of their shared life. And that's where our story starts. Subscribe to Sister Wives Daily Scoop so you don't miss the complete explosive trial, the explosive confessions, and the moment Christine exits with more than just her liberty. The judge's eyes darted between Christine and Kody, like an umpire in a battle that had already escalated too far. Christine's words still hung in the air, bare and sharp, but now everyone's attention was on Kody. He stood up straight, smoothed out his jacket, combed through his hair, and breathed. The sort of breath you take when you're about to lie magnificently, or say the sort of thing that annihilates you. Your Honor, Kody started, his tone remarkably even. There's a whole lot Christine hasn't said to you. And if she's going to say I've betrayed her, then perhaps it's time I prove to you who's been lying to whom. Belatedly, the courtroom erupted into a buzz. Christine didn't so much as flinch. She sat back, arms folded as if challenging him to bury himself. Kody extracted a folder from his briefcase. A fat one, full of papers, photographs, even what appeared to be printed emails. He pushed it across the table to the judge, but his gaze never wavered from Christine. Let's begin, he said, with the evening of March 12, 2 years ago. Christine's jaw clenched. She knew precisely what evening he was referring to. Kody started painting a scenario. A night when he said Christine had secretly met with a family friend, when she had allegedly been making plans behind his back. He explained calls that didn't line up with her stories, messages that he said showed she was already planning to leave him, but still acting as if everything was okay. But the longer he talked, the more the room started to lean away, not from him, but from her. Because Christine wasn't freaking out, she wasn't squirming or mouthing off to her attorney. She was about to smile. As Kody concluded, Christine leaned into her microphone. Your Honor, she said, her voice sharp as a blade. I'd like to thank Mr. Brown for bringing up March 12th. Because he's absolutely right. That was the night everything changed. But not in the way he's telling you. Her attorney pushed one photo across the table to the judge. It was blurry, but discernible enough to tell. Kody the same evening emerging from a hotel lobby, and walking hand in hand with someone who was most certainly not Christine. The courtroom was aghast. The judge rapped the gavel. Kody's face turned white. That's not, Christine interrupted him without raising her voice. Betrayal? That's betrayal. And why I began to make my exit strategy that evening wasn't because I was scheming against you, but because I finally realized the marriage was over. Her words did not tremble, but the gravity behind them landed like a wrecking ball. Kody attempted to regain the initiative, but the equilibrium in the room had been altered. What was intended to be his counterblow had become Christine's opening salvo, and she had struck at him where he was most vulnerable, his well-protected image. As the judge requested a short recess, Christine rose, collecting her papers. She didn't even glance at Kody as she strode past him, but as she did so, she breathed softly enough for his ears only. Round one's mine. Kody's jaw tightened. This was not going to be any mere legal fight. This was war. The recess was more like the calm at the center of a hurricane. Christine stood by the window with her attorney, their tones low but assertive. As the hum of reporters and onlookers crowded the area just beyond the courtroom, she never glanced over at Kody once. Not once. Kody meanwhile sat at the defense table, shoulders set, eyes fixed on the door, like a tiger poised for the right moment to pounce. His lawyer leaned forward, speaking quickly in hushed tones, but Kody nodded barely at all. He was far away, playing Christine's words back over and over in his head, that self-satisfied whisper. Round one's mine. It was no longer about winning in court. It was about humiliation, either hers or his. And he was not going to let her get away with the story. Not after everything she just hurled at him. The bailiff's voice thundered. Court is back in session. The audience crowded into the seats. The judge returned, tapping the gavel sharply as the whispers faded away. Christine sat calmly in her chair, whereas the lawyer for Kody stood up. Your Honor, counsel started. My client would prefer to speak to the court directly. What Mrs. Brown made before the recess was a partial, and very misleading, snapshot of things. We aim to set the record straight, in its entirety. The judge nodded. Proceed. Kody stood there creasing his jacket, but this time with an icy calculated tone that didn't need to scream because it didn't have to. Christine wants to discuss betrayal. He started, his stare zapped at her like a spear. Let's discuss trust, or lack thereof, within our marriage. But more to the point, let's discuss who was truly scheming first. Christine cocked her head to the side, her face inscrutable, but there was the barest glimmer of interest in her eyes. Kody drew out one sheet of paper, holding it aloft. This is a notarized affidavit, from a person Christine is very familiar with. In fact, this individual was once one of her best friends. A wave of interest rolled through the courtroom. He gave the paper to the clerk, who handed it to the judge. The judge read it hastily, frowning. Go on, Kody went on. This statement says, months before she says she discovered my infidelity, Christine was secretly seeing a divorce lawyer, without mentioning it to me. And she wasn't just testing the waters. She was sketching up a financial strategy to cut me out of everything, to seize assets, to— That is not true. Christine's attorney jumped up to object, but Christine touched his arm gently. Let him talk, she replied, her voice firm but low. Kody's eyes sparkled. She did not only plan her escape, she planned her revenge. And she did not plan to do that alone. This post explains how Christine went looking for some influential voices on the internet, individuals she knew could sway public opinion to her side. She wanted to arm the media. Before I even realized there was an issue in our marriage, Christine finally turned to him, and for the first time since this trial had started, there flashed in her eyes a speck of heat, not fear, anger. The judge nodded over the statement. Mr. Brown, this is a serious charge. Do you have supporting evidence? Kody smiled weakly, as if he'd been anticipating that very question. Yes, Your Honor. We have emails, properly authenticated by a third-party expert in technology, between Mrs. Brown and the so-called family friend, whom she testified about earlier. The emails detail not only her unhappiness, but concrete methods for getting the children to turn on me, for cooking up an invention she could sell. Gasps rippled through the room. Journalists wrote wildly. Christine's attorney protested. We object to the characterization of those emails. Your Honor, this is a gross misrepresentation. Kody raised his voice just enough to cut through the objection. I'm not misrepresenting anything. Christine played the victim to the public, while quietly building a case to destroy me. She says March 12th was the night she knew our marriage was over. That's not the truth. The truth is she'd been preparing to leave for months, and when she caught me making a mistake, she didn't confront me, she exploited it. The judge cowed the room with the gavel. Mrs. Brown, do you want to answer now or on your turn? Christine reached forward from her microphone, her voice firm but laced with poison. I'll answer now. She got up, taking a few steps towards the middle of the room. All of what Kody just stated is a half-truth. The kind that is damning sounding until you really look at the context. Yes, I did speak with an attorney. Yes, I did call on friends. But let me tell you why. She paused, looking the jury in the eye. If you live in a marriage where betrayal is the rule, not the exception, where you have been lied to, manipulated and told you're the problem for years, you begin to prepare for the day when you can't take it anymore. That's not revenge. That's survival. Her voice hardened, the metal in her words unmistakable. And if Kody wants to discuss playing the media card, perhaps he might recall the times he phoned producers, the one-on-ones he did with the network, the stories he attempted to craft when the cameras weren't rolling. I didn't initiate a war. I defended myself against one he was already fighting. Kody surged forward, fists bunched up. That's a lie. No, Christine snapped, her voice suddenly elevating in a manner that cleaved through the air. The only falsehood here is the notion that you are the victim. You destroyed this marriage long before I set my plans in motion, and each step I took afterward was because I would not let you dictate the remainder of my life. The judge banged the gavel again, demanding order, but the damage was done. Both sides had shown their cards, and the room could feel the stakes climbing higher. Christine returned to her seat, but not before leaning just slightly toward Kody as she passed. You wanted a fight. You've got one. Kody didn't blink. His eyes tracked her every move. But there was something more in them now. Not anger alone, but calculation. The judge requested the next exhibit of evidence. but neither Kody nor Christine was paying much attention. The trial had officially turned into something a good deal more sinister than a courtroom fight. This was a battle for survival, and there was to be only one of them who would return with the authority to share their side of the truth. The courtroom was so quiet, you could practically feel the force of the unspoken words bearing down on all of them. Christine sat with her shoulders drawn back, but her hands clutched the edges of the wooden table in front of her, knuckles white from the strain. Leaning forward in his chair, elbows on the desk, Kody's eyes flicked toward the judge, then back to Christine, like a hunter sizing up his next move. Robin sat in the gallery, a shadow of doubt on her face. She wasn't testifying today, but she haunted the room like smoke. She was the bridge, and the wedge, between the two. The bailiff approached, holding a fat manila envelope. Your Honor, this is the sealed evidence provided by Christine Brown's legal team. Kody's jaw muscle flexed. Evidence? He muttered under his breath. A low growl of disbelief. We've already been over everything. Christine's attorney, a woman with the calm precision of someone who thrives in tense rooms, stood and addressed the court. This is a recording, dated 2 years ago. My client never intended to use it, but given the accusations made against her integrity, she feels it's necessary to reveal the truth. The judge gave a nod. Proceed. The envelope was opened, and a small digital recorder was removed. Christine's eyes flashed with pain and determination. She knew what was on it. She remembered the night clearly. A crackle, then a voice filled the room. It was Kody's, unmistakable. You think you can just walk out on this family? You think you can take your freedom and leave me with the mess? I built this. Without me, you're nothing. A silence, and then Christine's voice, softer, calmer than anyone had anticipated. I'm not nothing, Kody. I just stopped being yours. The courtroom rocked. A wave of tension coursed through the room. Even the judge's pen hesitated in mid-note. Kody sprang to his feet. That's out of context. She's distorting, Mr. Brown. The judge cut in brusquely. Your turn. Christine didn't bat an eyelash. She didn't glance his way. Instead, she glanced at the jury, her tone firm as she clarified. Tonight was the night I informed Kody I was leaving. He threatened my position in the family, my home, and even my access to my children. I remained quiet for years. I held on to that recording not to hurt him, but to save myself in case I ever needed to. Kody's hands hit the table. You're lying. You've been plotting this. Enough, the judge cautioned. Robin rocked uncomfortably in the back. She glanced at Kody, then Christine. She knew some of what they were saying was true. She'd been there for some of it. But the glance Kody shot her was a warning. Say nothing. Christine's lawyer went on. This case is not about a divorce. It's about control, intimidation, and freedom. And today that ends. The room fell quiet once more. But this time it wasn't the silence of repression. It was the calm before something irrevocable is done. Kody sat down, but his leg jounced beneath the table, the mask of discipline slipping just far enough to betray the tempest raging below. He regarded Christine as if she'd just withdrawn the pin from a grenade, and handed it to him. The judge wrote down a note. This evidence will be admitted. We will reconvene tomorrow to hear further testimony. Christine picked up her papers, but as she turned to leave, she looked at Kody, not with fear, not even with anger, but with a finality that informed him. The war was already half won. And as she passed Robin, their eyes locked for a second. In Robin's look, there was something unexpected, almost like guilt. The enigma grew. What did Robin know, anyway? And why hadn't she piped up yet? The following morning, the courthouse was alive with electric, nervous tension. Word of the tape had gotten out. Reporters were already staking out the building, microphones at the ready, waiting for a statement from either party. Inside, the atmosphere was thick, almost palpable. Everyone knew that today could be the day everything changed. Christine sat at her table, serene but wary. Kody, however, resembled a man walking the cliff's edge. His hair was somewhat rumpled, his jaw clenched in anger. He hadn't even glanced at Christine since the judge recessed yesterday. Then the bailiff spoke. Robin Brown to the stand. Her name made Kody sit up straight. His gaze snapped toward her, quick and threatening. Robin wouldn't meet his eyes, moving slowly toward the witness stand. She adjusted her skirt, her fingers shaking ever so slightly. Following her oath, Christine's lawyer stepped forward. Mrs. Brown, can you describe to the court what happened on the night of August 14th, 2 years ago? Robin hesitated. I don't recall every detail. Christine's attorney leaned forward far enough for the jury to sense the gravity of the moment. Let me remind you. You were at Kody Brown's residence. Christine threatened to leave the plural marriage. There were raised voices. Threats were issued. Do you remember that? Robin's eyes darted toward Kody. Briefly, and the unspoken warning in his glare was clear. Don't you dare, she gulped. Yes, I remember. What do you remember? Exactly, the lawyer asked. Robin's voice trembled. Kody was upset. He felt blindsided. He said things he didn't mean. Be specific. Mrs. Brown. What things? Another look at Kody. This time, his face was darker, bordering on pleading. But something else too. Fear. Robin gazed back at the attorney. He told Christine she would regret it, that she would no longer be part of the family, that her children would not be invited to certain family gatherings. The jury moved uncomfortably in their chairs. The murmurs started in the courtroom. Kody sprang up from his seat. That's not what occurred. She's distorting. Mr. Brown, sit down. The judge shouted. Robin's voice became firmer, as if a dam had broken. He also told that she'd be by herself, that without him, she wouldn't be able to take care of herself or get her life together. I recall because I felt it was too extreme. I told him to leave. Christine's lawyer moved in closer. Mrs. Brown, did you feel at that time that Kody was attempting to intimidate Christine into remaining? Robin's eyes glossed with tears. She hesitated, torn between loyalty and truth. But finally she nodded. Yes. The courtroom erupted. Kody's chair scraped violently against the floor as he stood again, pointing directly at her. You're betraying me? After everything I've done for you? Robin didn't answer him. She kept her gaze fixed on the judge, her hands clasped tightly in front of her, as if bracing herself for the fallout. Christine leaned back in her chair, looking dazed. She hadn't thought Robin would cross the boundary. Not here. Not in this way. The gavel banged. Order in the court. We will take a brief recess before proceeding. But the harm was done. Within a few minutes, Robin had validated Christine's accusations before the whole court. The treachery clung to the atmosphere like smoke from a fire that had only just been ignited, and everyone was aware that it was going to get hotter before it ended. And deep inside, Christine knew this wasn't mere betrayal. This was the beginning of the crack in Kody's armor. And once it began crumbling, there would be no way to hold it back. The recess was only 15 minutes. But by the time everyone came back into the courtroom, the mood had changed. The tension wasn't between Kody and Christine anymore. Now, it stuck to Robin like a shadow. She kept her head down, refusing to even look at him. Kody's jaw was clenched, his fists on the table as if he were restraining himself from blowing. Christine, by contrast, sat calmly, with a serene determination. She knew this was her time. The judge pushed his glasses up. Mrs. Brown, you are excused. Plaintiff, you are welcome to call your next witness. Christine's lawyer stood up slowly, with the kind of slow, deliberate calm that something big was about to happen. Your Honor, in place of another witness, we would like to present Exhibit C, a recording. Kody's eyes flicked up. What recording? The attorney replied him indirectly. This was donated by a third party. It is audio from August 14th. It includes a conversation between Christine Brown and Mr. Brown. Kody leapt out of his chair. This is absurd. That's private. Sit down, Mr. Brown, the judge snapped. The attorney pressed play. The air was charged with static for a moment, and then Kody's unmistakable growl boomed through the speakers. You think you can leave me and steal everything? You'll regret this, Christine. You'll regret it every day of your life. Christine's own voice followed, firm but trembling. Kody, I simply want peace. I don't want to fight. The tape went on, the sound of Kody's voice cold, almost vicious. You have no idea what I'm capable of. If you leave, you won't just lose me. You'll lose the life you've built. You'll be nothing without me. A courtroom gasp swept over the room. Even the court reporter stopped for a moment. Kody's face turned deep red. That's taken out of context. But then the tape landed the punch no one could justify. In a softer, icier voice, Kody said, If you really believe anyone's going to stand up for you against me, you're mistaken. Even Robin knows whose side she's on. Each head swiveled to Robin. Her face was white, her mouth compressing into a thin line. Christine's lawyer stopped the recording. Mrs. Brown, you previously testified that you felt intimidated by Mr. Brown when he was with Christine. After hearing this, do you continue to support your statement? Robin breathed in slowly. Yes, I do. It was the final straw. Cody's restraint snapped. His hands crashed onto the table with such force the resounding thud was audible. This is a pack of lies. You're all turning on me. The judge's gavel crashed. Mr. Brown, you have one more outburst, and I will find you in contempt of court. But the harm was done. The jury had witnessed it. Not only the threats, but the anger, the desire to control. The total breakdown of the man before them. Christine didn't grin, but there was a glint of something in her eyes. Not gloating, not victory, but release. Years of emotional combat were finally being dragged into the light. As the court adjourned for the day, Kody sat like a statue, his eyes fixed on the table, his authority slipping away slowly but surely. Christine exited without looking back. There was no need for it. She had finally spoken what had to be spoken, not only with her words, but with irrefutable evidence. And now it was not her cross to bear anymore. The war wasn't quite over yet, but after today, everybody knew the tide had shifted.